Fame and fortune go hand in hand, right? Well, not always. There are people who are rich, but not famous. And these folks have the sad distinction of being well known while also being flat broke.
Rock and roll can bring you fame, but it can't always bring you fortune. Just ask these down on their luck stars. From the outside looking in, Mel B seemed to have it all. The erstwhile Scary Spice had parlayed her Spice Girls fame into TV celebrity, both in her native UK and in the US. She also reaped the financial windfall of the Spice Girls 2019 reunion tour. But as she revealed in a 2024 interview with the BBC, her divorce from her allegedly abusive ex-husband, Stephen Belafonte, had left her flat broke. She told the network that all the money she made from the reunion tour went to pay her ex. She owed a $350,000 settlement in addition to monthly child support payments of $5,000. She recalled, "I didn't realize that I didn't have as much money as I thought I had, so I literally had to eat humble pie, live with my mom."
No matter who you are, how much money you have, what colour you are, what age you are, if an abuser wants to get you, they will.
In addition to moving in with her mother, Mel B was also forced into a lifestyle adjustment. She had to cut her spending significantly just to save up enough money to move out and eventually get her own place. Ace Frehley was a founding member of the fire-breathing, face-painted foursome Kiss. Instrumental in the band's initial success, Frehley played guitar for Kiss from 1973 until quitting in the early 1980s to pursue a solo career. Although his split from the band was complicated, he and bandmates Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley buried the hatchet and reunited for a 1996 reunion tour with the original lineup. Frehley remained in Kiss until parting ways again in 2001, although he continued to perform with the band sporadically after that. The years that followed were rough for Frehley. His solo work never came close to generating the same sort of success he'd achieved with Kiss, and he experienced some severe money problems. In 2013, a report in the Journal News claimed that Frehley was losing his home to foreclosure and hadn't made a mortgage payment in 2 years. In addition, he also owed close to $20,000 in unpaid taxes. Looking back at his exit from Kiss, Frehley wished he'd done things differently and not quit the band that first time. He discussed his departure on the Talk is Jericho podcast.
It was a stupid decision when I look back now because, I lost millions of dollars.
Fronted by Richard Ashcroft, British rock band The Verve broke through in 1997 with their hit single Bittersweet Symphony. Unfortunately, the song utilized a brief snippet from an orchestral rendition of the Rolling Stones' The Last Time, taken from the instrumental album The Rolling Stones Songbook. While Bittersweet Symphony wasn't The Verve's only hit, it was their biggest. When it rocketed up the charts, Alan Klein, the Stones' former manager, took action. Klein still held the rights to The Last Time and the other early Stones songs and demanded 100% of the royalties for Bittersweet Symphony. Facing an extensive uphill legal battle, the band felt there was no choice but to cave in, and Ashcroft was paid a mere $1,000. After Klein's 2009 death, his son took over ABKCO, a company that held the copyright for that song. Discussing this change, Ashcroft told Consequence of Sound's Kyle Meredith with podcast, "I'm coming for that money. Someone stole God knows how many $1 million off me in 1997, and they've still got it." In 2019, more than 20 years after the song's release, Ashcroft took to X to reveal that Keith Richards and Mick Jagger generously signed over their songwriting credits on Bittersweet Symphony to him. Billboard estimated that Klein's shenanigans cost Ashcroft somewhere in the range of $5 million of royalties. Bass player Glenn Matlock was a founding member of the Sex Pistols. While he was there at the beginning, he didn't experience the band's greatest success and eventual flameout, as he was replaced by doomed punk icon Sid Vicious in 1977. Interviewed by The Telegraph in 2014, Matlock estimated that his exit from the Pistols cost him somewhere in the low millions. While he received songwriting royalties for his work on the band's debut album Nevermind the Bollocks, that income did not go unnoticed by the tax authorities. He said, "In 1983, the tax man came knocking for £35,000 to £40,000, which I didn't have. I had to remortgage my flat in the end." Looking back, Matlock regretted the decision to pay off his taxes in full instead of waiting until he'd been able to amass some more money. He explained, "Then I wouldn't have had a massive mortgage on my shoulders at punitive interest rates when I wasn't working." At the time of the interview, Matlock said he hoped to pay off his mortgage within 10 years. These days, he remains a working musician. He joined Blondie in 2022 and has been accompanying the band on tours since then. So if he hasn't paid off that mortgage by now, another few tours with the fellow rock icons will hopefully do the trick. There are a few rockers more emblematic of the one-hit wonder phenomenon than Norman Greenbaum. The singer's 1969 hit Spirit in the Sky represented the zenith of his career, and while he was optimistic about building upon that initial blush of success, no further hits followed. As the years passed, Greenbaum struggled to maintain a career in the music industry. By 1980, he'd thrown in the towel completely and got a job as a restaurant cook. Speaking with the New York Times, he reflected, "I was broke. What else could I do?" Everything changed in 1987 when Spirit in the Sky was licensed to appear in the movie Made to Order. Then the song was front and center in Apollo 13. In the following years, Spirit in the Sky was utilized in dozens of films, TV shows, and commercial spots. The royalty checks began pouring in, and Greenbaum was able to quit his job. Speaking from his two-bedroom apartment, he reflected, "Well, it's not like it's made me rich, as you can see, but because of Spirit in the Sky, I don't have to work, so in that sense, it's a comfortable living." As Greenbaum told Rolling Stone in 2020, he still enjoys hearing his song perk up a movie. He reflected, "I'm blown away by the whole thing, really. Not because I know I'm going to make some money out of it. It's something as a performer you appreciate very much." After exiting alt-country band Whiskeytown, Ryan Adams went solo with the critically acclaimed debut album Heartbreaker. His success as a singer-songwriter grew, as did his fame, particularly when he married singer and actor Mandy Moore. A few years after he and Moore divorced, the 2009 expose in the New York Times presented the stories of 7 women, one of whom was Moore, who characterized him as psychologically abusive. After that, Adams' once promising career cratered.
I do find it curious that someone would sort of do an interview about it without actually making amends privately.
By 2021, his career had slowed down so much that he issued a since-deleted Instagram post begging for a record deal. He wrote, "I know I'm damaged goods. I'm months from losing my label, studio, and my home. I just really want a second chance to make some music." The then 46-year-old went on to express his worry he'd wind up living in his sister's basement if he didn't receive an offer from a label soon. Shortly afterward, he told Los Angeles Magazine, "So I'm losing my life's work and my dream of who I am, my ability to provide for myself." He even admitted he'd contemplated selling his publishing so he wouldn't lose his rent at home. In 2024, Adams re-emerged with several new albums. He also embarked on a solo concert tour, attempting a comeback to regain the career he'd lost. Mick Taylor was already a blues guitar wonderkind when he joined the Rolling Stones at age 20. Taking over lead guitar duties in 1969 after the firing and subsequent death of Brian Jones, Taylor went on to appear in what are considered to be the band's best albums, Let It Bleed, Sticky Fingers, and Exile on Main Street. He quit the Stones abruptly in 1974. As a solo artist, Taylor never came close to matching the level of success he'd experienced with the Stones. In 2009, he gave an interview to the Daily Mail complaining about not receiving songwriting credit Jagger promised him for tracks in which he believed he'd made essential contributions. Reportedly, Taylor hadn't received any money from the Stones since 1982, and he was living in a shabby home and couldn't pay his bills. Taylor's manager Jeff Allen told NME that he was stunned by the way the guitarist was falsely characterized in the Daily Mail. Allen explained, "The emphasis of the article was that Mick was some kind of run-down, down-and-out tramp living in Suffolk. The reality is Mick's having the house done up." While details of Taylor's financial situation haven't been made public, it's a safe bet he's not nearly as well off as Jagger or Richards, each of whom are reportedly worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Cass McCombs may not be a household name, but he's certainly well known in indie rock circles. Since first making waves in the early 2000s, the singer-songwriter has released numerous albums, collaborated with the likes of DJ Khaled, and toured with bands like The War on Drugs and Arcade Fire. Despite all that, McCombs is hardly living the kind of lifestyle one might associate with a rock star. Speaking with Vulture, he candidly observed, "I don't really understand how any musician can afford to stay in one place. We don't make enough money to afford an apartment." In the modern era of music streaming, when artists such as McCombs earn a fraction of a penny per stream, money isn't exactly pouring in. He explained that a large portion of musicians out there have other jobs to support themselves. He reflected, "I've done everything. Worked in horse stables, rode a truck, worked at bookstores, record stores, movie theaters. I was a projectionist. Worked in delicatessens, did demolitions, painting. I painted the Trump Tower one time, folded and licked invitation envelopes." Oscar winners, TV stars, and a 90s-era blonde bombshell. They've all been successful enough to be recognized everywhere they go, but even famous people can have money problems. According to some estimates, Pamela Anderson may be sitting atop a multi-million-dollar fortune, but the former Baywatch star offered a far different characterization in her 2023 Netflix documentary series Pamela: A Love Story. In that documentary, her son Brandon Lee stated that his mother has been in debt for most of her life. The film's director Ryan White told Yahoo Entertainment, "She was the most famous woman in the world of the most famous show in the world, and she doesn't have a nest egg from Baywatch to rely upon." According to movie producer John Peters, during his brief 12-day marriage to Anderson, he'd covered her debts. He wrote in an email to Page Six, "She had almost $200,000 in bills and no way to pay it, so I paid it."
You're not good with money, are you?
I'm not good with money.
Kevin Spacey was one of Hollywood's most acclaimed actors, winning 2 Oscars and rave reviews for his performance as devious politician Frank Underwood in Netflix's House of Cards. In 2017, however, it all came crashing down when an avalanche of sexual misconduct allegations slammed the brakes on Spacey's career. Not only was he fired from House of Cards, the actor was deemed so toxic that scenes he'd shot for Ridley Scott's film All the Money in the World were reshot with another actor, screen icon Christopher Plummer. By 2024, Spacey had been spending more time in courtrooms and soundstages, which had depleted his fortune to the point that a bank foreclosed on his luxurious Baltimore condo. During an appearance on Piers Morgan Uncensored, Spacey admitted that he'd come close to filing for bankruptcy, but had thus far managed to stave it off.
How much money do you have? None.
The actor then revealed to Morgan that he still owed millions in unpaid legal bills. Spacey never actually divulged the precise amount that he owed, but some reports indicate he may be as much as $2 million in debt. Among Nickelodeon's hottest stars, Drake and Josh actor Drake Bell seemingly had a bright future awaiting after his initial burst of teen stardom. However, after the end of Drake and Josh in 2007, that promising career proved to be elusive, and by 2014, things had gone so wrong for Bell that he declared bankruptcy. According to People, he had amassed more than $1.5 million in debt. In the years that followed, Bell pursued a career in music. He put out a few albums over the years, including 2024's Nonstop Flight. Hand in hand with those albums, however, came plenty of controversy, including a brief jail sentence for DUI, an ex's allegations of abuse, and an arrest on charges of child endangerment over some inappropriate texts with a minor. In 2024, Bell appeared in the blockbuster documentary series Quiet on Set: The Dark Side of Kids TV, revealing he was sexually abused by acting coach Brian Peck as a teen Nickelodeon star.
Brian had been convicted, but getting all of this support from a lot of people in the industry, and
he rebranded himself as a Latin artist, enjoying modest success in Mexico after renaming himself Drake Campana and releasing a Spanish-language album. As of late 2024, Bell is worth an estimated $600,000. One of the most popular child stars of the 1970s, Melissa Gilbert enjoyed TV stardom during her 9-season run on the successful TV hit Little House on the Prairie. She ultimately went on to become president of the Screen Actors Guild, serving in that role from 2001 until 2005. After her 2011 divorce from fellow actor Bruce Boxleitner, she remarried, tying the knot with former 30-something star Timothy Busfield in 2013. During that time, her acting career had hit a dry spell, leading the couple to move from California to Michigan. In 2015, USA Today reported that she owed the IRS $360,000 in unpaid taxes. Gilbert said in a statement to E! News, "Like so many people across the nation, the recession hit me hard. That, plus a divorce and a dearth of acting opportunities the last few years, created a perfect storm of financial difficulty for me." Interviewed by Next Avenue in 2022, Gilbert admitted she and Busfield now live far more frugally than she ever had before, adding, "I have learned to be very mindful of my expenses." As a daughter of legendary TV producer Aaron Spelling, money was never an issue for Tori Spelling. The prototypical Nepo baby, Spelling catapulted to stardom when she was cast in her dad's hit series Beverly Hills 90210. However, Spelling has been plagued with financial problems ever since. In 2016, she and her then-husband Dean McDermott reportedly owed more than $250,000 in back taxes. In that same year, she was sued by American Express over an unpaid credit card balance of nearly $90,000.
Tori Spelling did go from quite a lavish lifestyle to a lifestyle that involves budgeting.
In 2023, she and her 5 children were photographed staying in an RV in a campground. The following year, she and her kids moved into a 5-bedroom, $12,000 per month rental. Clearly, Spelling's financial situation has been in flux. However, her mother, Candy Spelling, once told TMZ that she'd been paying her daughter's bills. Spelling even admitted in an episode of her podcast, "I had a business manager since I was 18 years old, so I never handled any of my money." Australian actor Adelaide Kane starred in 4 seasons of historical TV drama Reign before going on to play Dr. Jules Millen in Grey's Anatomy in 2022. Back in 2020, however, she shattered any assumptions about her perceived wealth when she laid out her financial situation in a candid TikTok post, in which she addressed online reports of her net worth. She said in the since-deleted video, "So I found out today the internet thinks I'm worth $4 million. My crippling debt says otherwise. Where?" As Kane explained, she made $20,000 per episode for Reign, and estimated that she'd earned a total of $5 million since she began working at age 16. However, after taxes and fees for her agent, lawyer, and managers, her earnings amounted to an average of about $178,000 annually. And when factoring in the costs of a publicist, red carpet appearances, and stylists, you can easily tack on thousands of dollars to her monthly expenses. Drea De Matteo is best known as Adriana La Cerva on The Sopranos. After a stint as a series regular on the Jennifer Lopez starring cop show Shades of Blue, her career slumped after the pandemic, which she believed was due to her stance opposing COVID-19 vaccine mandates. In 2023, De Matteo revealed her money struggles had driven her to sell images of herself on OnlyFans. She told Fox News, "I know some people have said some nasty things about me having joined OnlyFans, but you know, the way we see it in this house is mommy's a warrior, not accepting defeat." In a 2024 interview with the Daily Mail, De Matteo offered more details, revealing that her financial situation had grown so dire that she had just $10 in her bank account, while poised to lose her home to foreclosure. With nothing left to lose, supporting 2 children and her dementia-stricken mother, OnlyFans felt like her only option. Success on the spicy site was immediate. According to De Matteo, within 5 minutes of sharing skin-bearing photos, she generated enough income to save her house from foreclosure.
Immediately, I was like, oh my God, we're going to be okay.
As her subscriber base grew, she was also able to fund a new line of streetwear. She told the Daily Mail, "OnlyFans saved my life, 100%. I can't believe I'm saying that, but it really did save us." Any devotees of the Disney Channel during the 2000s will be familiar with Christy Carlson Romano, star of the hit sitcom Even Stevens and the voice of animated hero Kim Possible. However, as she explained in a candid YouTube video, all that success at a young age did not translate into a hefty nest egg once she grew up.
I really regret not investing my money wisely. I didn't get a house. I didn't take any money and store it away.
At 18, she went to college, but quit after a year and a half.
I was never told how much money I was making. Money didn't have a purpose for me. I didn't really know what it was.
As residual checks grew smaller and she burned through her savings, she soon came to the shocking realization that she was broke. She wound up taking roles in projects she would have otherwise avoided just so she could pay her rent and maintain her SAG-AFTRA health insurance. She ultimately rebounded, finding success in podcasting by opening up about her real-life struggles as a former child star. She told Texas Monthly, "I don't know what my possibilities are, but I know it's rooted in authenticness. Be authentic, but monetizing." One would think that any top-selling musician would end up rich, but not every rock superstar has a superstar bank account to match. In fact, these well-known musicians are surprisingly strapped for cash. Creed's brand of anguished, turgid spiritual rock captured the rock radio airwaves and CD buyers' dollars in the late 1990s and early 2000s. The group, led by the gravelly belting of frontman Scott Stapp, sold more than 30 million albums, took the power ballad With Arms Wide Open to #1 on the pop charts, and landed a couple of Grammy Award nominations. Creed officially split up in 2004 due to personal and professional disagreements between guitarist Mark Tremonti and Stapp, but every original member except the singer moved on to a new band called Alter Bridge.
I heard you say that you isolated yourself from your own bandmates.
Yeah.
And they misinterpreted that as you think you're better than us.
Right.
What happened to Stapp? He released a solo album that sold 1 million copies and reunited with Creed in 2009. And then he went broke.
I had to sleep in my truck. I had no money, not even for gas or food.
Stapp explained that he did a self-audit during which he discovered huge sums of money were missing, and that he was owed a fortune in unpaid royalties, even though as late as 2013 he'd received $1.5 million from his record label. He also claimed that he was being unfairly targeted by the IRS. A few days later, Stapp started a crowdfunding campaign with a goal of $480,000 to make a new album and write a book. Sly Stone, along with his band, The Family Stone, defined the pop sound of the late 60s and early 70s. Equal parts soul, funk, and rock, Sly and The Family Stone recorded joyful hippie-era anthems including Dance to the Music, Everyday People, Hot Fun in the Summertime, and I Want to Take You Higher. The band moved about 8 million albums before they started to fall apart in the 1970s, once Stone's substance use began to occupy his attention. In 1983, Stone was arrested for cocaine possession, and he mostly retreated from public view after that.
Well, I got tired. So I retired.
As late as 2007, Stone lived in a lavish house with its own vineyard in Northern California's wine country. But by 2011, he was essentially unhoused and living in a van. He nearly received a windfall in 2015 when a Los Angeles court ruled that Stone was owed $5 million on unpaid royalties. Later that year, though, a judge reversed the decision after discovering that Stone had signed away the royalties in 1989 for a 50% ownership stake in a production company. Sigur Rós took rock music to strange, spooky, and mystical new places. One of the most famous and successful musical acts to ever emerge from Iceland, the experimental group made major commercial breakthroughs in Europe and the US. The band generated a lot of income in the 2010s in particular, but according to Icelandic government authorities, it failed to pay taxes on those earnings. In 2019, a district prosecutor in Iceland completed a 3-year investigation and filed an indictment against the band alleging tax evasion to the tune of 151 million Icelandic krona, the equivalent of about $1 million. Sigur Rós blamed its accountant for the discrepancy, but the court seized and froze the musicians' assets, including their apartments and houses. The band was cleared of wrongdoing in 2021, but the decision was later reversed, with prosecutors refocusing their case on frontman Jansi Bergesson. Those charges were dropped in 2023. The 1970s was the golden age of teen idols, conventionally attractive and highly marketable young men hired to sing songs, pose for photographs, and sell tons of records and merch to impressionable young people. From mid-1977 to late 1979, the most popular teen idol around may have been Leif Garrett, a conventionally attractive teenager with big blonde hair. He made the rounds on the variety shows and scored hits with covers of pop standards like Surfin' USA and Runaround Sue, and light disco tunes including I Was Made for Dancin'.
If you were a teen in the 70s, no one star shone as brightly as this satin-clad, blonde-haired glam pop singer.
But Garrett's moment in the sun wouldn't last. By 1980, audiences had moved on to the next hot young guy, and Garrett was washed up before he was even 20 years old. He didn't take it well. Garrett was arrested multiple times for drug possession. He tried to get straight, checking into various rehab programs, but wasn't always successful.
Leif Garrett came with a fresh wound from a from a pipe that you use for crack, you know?
By 2001, Garrett filed for personal bankruptcy. He was unable to pay his bills or a $76,000 credit card debt with his only income, a $1,000 monthly allowance from his mother. As of 2025, Garrett's personal net worth was reportedly somewhere in the $10,000 range. A protege of pop R&B producer and songwriter Babyface, soul and torch song crooner Toni Braxton debuted on her mentor's soundtrack for the 1992 movie Boomerang with the hit Love Shoulda Brought You Home. A year later, Braxton's self-titled debut album exploded onto the airwaves, with singles like Another Sad Love Song and Breathe Again. Braxton hit #1 in 1996 with both You're Making Me High and Unbreak My Heart. But due to the singer's complex draconian record contract, she took home just $1,972 in royalties against the $170 million in revenue she earned for her label. Braxton explained to ABC News that all the expenses of her career, like music video production and studio recording fees, were deducted from her cut.
What happens is they'll give you an advancement on the next record, and then the next record, so you kind of stay in debt in a sense.
That devastating lack of income, coupled with Braxton's spending habits, buying housewares, art, and other luxury items, led her to file for bankruptcy in 1998. Braxton was financially stable by 2000, but her next few albums didn't sell. In 2010, Braxton once again filed for bankruptcy and was forced to sell her Nevada home.
When the checks come back, when they send them back to you in the mail, you are the first person to open them. You never let anybody else open them.
In 2012, Braxton's mansion in Duluth, Georgia was taken by a bank through foreclosure. The radio-friendly pop-rock band Toto came out of the Los Angeles session musician community. Individually, the members of Toto played on thousands of session recordings for other artists. They hit the top 5 in 1978 with their first single, Hold the Line, and it looked like they were headed for mainstream stardom. Altogether, Toto sold more than 14 million albums, with about a third of that coming from 1982's Toto 4. That record won the Grammy for Album of the Year and included the band's biggest hits, Africa and Rosanna. The record sales started to decline in the mid-80s, and the band finally called it quits in 2008. As part of the split, Toto ordered an audit of royalty records held by their label Sony. They subsequently filed a federal lawsuit against Sony, citing breach of contract and asking for $605,000 in damages. Sony filed a request for dismissal, and in 2014, a judge decided that the company didn't owe Toto anything. All the debt incurred from the legal action forced Toto to record a new album and head out on tour once again. Member Steve Lukather told Smashing Interviews, "It was born out of litigation." Multiple labels wanted Tommy James and the Shondells in 1966, but the band signed with Roulette Records. The head of that company, Morris Levy, had told the other labels to back off, and they did. No surprise, because Levy was reportedly deep into New York's organized crime world.
I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse.
Word was that he routinely threatened or enacted violence against any perceived threat, up to and including his own label's acts. Country pop act Jimmy Rogers asked Levy for 9 years' worth of royalty payments. Rogers was beaten almost to death in December 1967. But Roulette gave James full creative freedom. On the other hand, as James told Classic Rock, getting paid was different. It was like taking a bone from a Rottweiler. Instead of paying James the royalties he was owed, Levy would give him bags of cash when he needed money. It was under this system that James racked up a string of massive hits in the late 60s. Including Hanky Panky, Mony Mony, and Crimson and Clover. Well aware of Levy's mob affiliations, James remained on Roulette into the 1970s, but he finally got fed up with not being paid, at least not properly. With his accountant, James went to Roulette's record pressing plant and audited their books. James explained, "I was owed between $30 million and $40 million. Levy flat out threatened us. You. If you ever try and use that against me, you will find yourself in the river." He meant it. Before Levy died in 1990, he sold Roulette to Warner Brothers, which allowed James to recoup a fraction of his unpaid royalties. James rightfully wasn't satisfied, saying, "Vast sums were still owing, which I didn't see." Randy Travis, a country music traditionalist who nevertheless became a major star in the slicker, more modern 1980s and 90s, nearly lost everything in 2013. He developed an upper respiratory illness that led to viral cardiomyopathy, a condition that can cause permanent heart damage or death. Travis recovered, but then suffered congestive heart failure that led to a stroke. The singer underwent brain surgery and needed 2 years of rehabilitation to regain basic function. Unable to play the guitar, sing, or speak like he used to, Travis lost his main source of income. That's when he learned that no financial safety nets had been put in place. Travis was under the impression that his management had taken out a hefty disability insurance policy in case he should ever lose his voice. They hadn't. On top of that, royalty checks for his previous work had stopped years before because he hadn't sold past the advances or made good on loans taken out against future earnings. Throughout his career, Travis sold 23 million albums, but little of the financial gains ever made their way to the artist. If you're a musician who only ever has one hit your whole career, it helps to nail down a songwriting credit. Otherwise, you might end up running a car dealership. Come On Eileen was as unlikely as it was massive. Under the direction of frontman Kevin Rowland, Dexy's Midnight Runners dressed like street urchins and rocked to sound influenced by American R&B, early rock and roll, and traditional Celtic music. Come On Eileen includes fiddles, a banjo solo, and a mid-song chant, which was somehow a formula for hitting the #1 spot on the pop chart in the early 80s. Dexy's Midnight Runners took another 8 singles to the top 40 in their native UK, though Come On Eileen was the only one to break through across the pond. The group made a lot of money for Rowland, but by 1987 he'd blown through most of it on cocaine and heroin. He ended up evicted from his home in London and filed for bankruptcy. Rap was in its early stages and confined mostly to New York in 1979 when Sugar Hill Records co-owner Sylvia Robinson came across Lovebug Startsky at a club in Harlem rapping over an instrumental piece of the chic disco song Good Times.
I'm gonna make a hip-hop album, no matter what.
Sensing the dawn of a cultural phenomenon, Robinson put together a group of young men, named them the Sugar Hill Gang, and put them in a studio to capture a mishmash of rhyming stories called Rapper's Delight. That track brought hip-hop into the mainstream. It peaked at number 36 on the US pop charts and number 4 on the R&B chart. But the performers on the song didn't see much money for their work. Chic's Nile Rodgers and Bernard Edwards forced Sugar Hill Records to list them as co-writers, while Robinson claimed a big portion of the proceeds by giving herself a songwriting credit. Meanwhile, she had signed Sugar Hill Gang members Wonder Mike and Master G to such restrictive contracts that they made only a total of $250,000 in the 30 years after the song's release. Tony Basil's 1982 single Mickey was one of the first songs to really break through thanks to its music video. It already sounded like a pep rally chant, so it only made sense for Basil, a former cheerleader herself, to direct the video as a series of cheerleading routines. It went to number 1 in the US, but she never took another song anywhere near the top 40. Even though Mickey could be heard just about everywhere, it didn't earn Basil much money because she didn't write it. British band Racy had recorded a song called Kitty in 1979, and Basil flipped the gender of the subject and changed the name. So Kitty songwriters Mike Chapman and Nicky Chin are the ones who profited from the royalties. And much of the money to which Basil was entitled, she says she never received. She filed a lawsuit against numerous record labels and media companies in 2017 to reacquire the copyright to her recording. Basil emerged victorious in 2022. Jamie Walters got his big break when he landed the lead role of wannabe rock star Alex O'Brien on The Heights, a musical drama series that aired for 1 season on Fox in 1992. The show's theme song, How Do You Talk to an Angel, featuring Walters' vocals and credited to the show's fictional band, ended up hitting number 1 in the pop chart. But just a week later, The Heights was canceled due to low ratings. 2 years after that, Walters joined the cast of Beverly Hills 90210, and in 1995, his rock ballad Hold On made it to the top 20 of the pop charts and the top 10 on the adult contemporary list. With one smash as the singer of The Heights and one of his own, Walters thus became the rare double one-hit wonder. But Walters left Hollywood behind in 2002. Instead, he followed another childhood dream by becoming a firefighter and paramedic for the Los Angeles City Fire Department. He told the U.S. Sun in 2024, "I'm thankful that I was able to switch gears and do something that I'm proud of and that my kids find interesting and cool." The hip-hop trio Third Base recorded 3 well-received albums before they could claim a bona fide hit single. Pop Goes the Weasel hit the top 30 of Billboard's R&B, dance, and pop charts in 1991, gaining attention partly because it was a savage diss track targeted at Vanilla Ice.
They didn't sell a fraction of what you sold.
Nobody
At the end of the day.
Third Base's MC Search launched a moderately successful solo career in 1992, which marked the end of his group. His bandmate, Pete Nice, real name Peter Nash, took the baseball pun in the group's name and ran with it, embarking on a new, if certainly lower-paying career as a historian of the national pastime. He spent 7 years researching and writing baseball legends of Brooklyn's Greenwood Cemetery. He also published a book about the Red Sox called Boston's Royal Rooters and operated a memorabilia shop near the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, New York. Unfortunately, the money he did make, he did so unscrupulously. He was sued over phony merchandise and charged with tax fraud. Young pop stars like Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera paved the way for Willa Ford, who released her debut album Willa Was Here in 2001. It spawned one notable single, I Wanna Be Bad. There may have been more hits in Ford's future if not for the intervention of tragic global events. She told Billboard in 2017, "A lot of people don't realize this, but my second single was released on September 11th, 2001. Everything that happened that day froze. The world stood still as it should have. My second single didn't do well because anything that launched that day kinda got canned." With Ford's career momentum stalled, Atlantic Records shelved her next album completely. She then moved on to other areas of entertainment, landing guest spots on TV shows like Raising Dad and Leverage, starring in a remake of Friday the 13th and posing for Playboy. She now works in a lead creative position at her home design company, W. Ford Interiors.
There was a moment when I decided I wanted to be in control of the yes and the no that was said to me.
In 1978, a band called Valentine released a single self-titled album that didn't make much of an impression on the general public. But 5 years later, one of its members scored a solo hit when his fist-pumping anthem about perseverance was selected for inclusion on the soundtrack of a long-awaited sequel to a popular movie. A musician?
You guessed it, Frank Stallone.
The song was Far From Over, which hit number 10 on the charts thanks to its inclusion in Stayin' Alive, the follow-up to Saturday Night Fever, which just so happened to be directed by Frank Stallone's older brother, Sylvester. The older, more famous Stallone helped out his brother whenever he could, getting his songs into many of his films. But that didn't bring Frank much fame or fortune, as he never scored another hit on the same level as Far From Over. By 2008, he was starring on the reality show Hulk Hogan's Celebrity Championship Wrestling out of financial desperation. Then in 2024, he sold off much of his extensive guitar collection via Instagram. The Vapors' 1980 new wave hit Turning Japanese is told from the point of view of a man desperately fixated on a woman he can't get with the implication being that he resorts to self-love instead. That risque nature didn't prevent the song from being a top 5 hit in the UK-based Vapors' home country, while it also scraped into the top 40 in the US.
I never expected to hear my own song on the radio.
But not much of note happened afterwards. The Vapors never had another hit and broke up after their second album flopped in 1981, although they eventually reunited in the 2020s and recorded a couple of independently released albums. When frontman Dave Fenton first put the band together in the late 70s, he was studying law, and after their breakup, he worked as an attorney. Before he retired, his most recent position was as the resident lawyer for the UK's non-profit Musicians Union. The Greatest American Hero ran for 3 seasons on ABC from 1981 to 1983, an action comedy about a bumbling teacher who can't quite figure out how to operate a special suit given to him by aliens. The series used a soaring soft rock theme song co-written by legendary composer Mike Post. A session musician named Joey Scarborough was tapped to sing the track, as well as a number of other pleasant numbers on the show. The theme song, Believe It or Not, went all the way to number 2 on the pop charts and number 3 on the adult contemporary charts in 1981. A second Scarborough song from the show, When She Dances, stalled at number 49, and by 1984 his recording career was essentially over. He was paid the legal minimum fee to record Believe It or Not, though he's since earned a steady though modest income from its royalties. He told Noble Mania in 2014, "I made the money back 100-fold in residuals and royalties. I'll go a year and make $3,000, and the next year tens of thousands." In the 2010s, Scarborough was managing a car dealership in Santa Monica, California. Walter Egan spent most of the 70s collaborating with some of the era's biggest names in rock. Graham Parsons recorded Egan's song Hearts on Fire, Jackson Browne added him to his band, and Fleetwood Mac's Lindsey Buckingham co-produced his 1978 LP Not Shy. That release included Egan's long-awaited commercial breakthrough, a top 10 pop hit, Magnet and Steel. Alas, follow-up singles and albums sold poorly, and Egan spent most of the 80s working as a graphic artist. He also appeared on TV in a non-musical capacity, as a regular contestant on various game shows. He quietly ended a recording break of 16 years with the independently released Walternative in 1999, and by the 2010s he'd settled into a career as a part-time touring musician. He supplemented his income as a substitute music teacher in Williamson County, Tennessee. In 1993, Whitney Houston set a record for most weeks at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 with her cover of Dolly Parton's I Will Always Love You. That massive hit was the only thing standing in the way of hip-hop duo Tag Team having the biggest song of the year in the form of Whoop, There It Is. They sold 4 million copies of that song, but they couldn't sustain the public's interest for very long, and their subsequent singles all flopped. While Tag Team didn't remain on the top of the charts, it wasn't the end of their story. They may not be raking in millions, but they're doing alright for themselves. They play corporate parties and conferences for $5,000 a pop, while royalties from their one hit earn each member about $250,000 a year. And in 2020, they cashed in on some 90s nostalgia by playing themselves in a Geico commercial.
So what are you waiting for? Hip-hop group Tag Team to help you plan dessert?